Just begin by understanding a fundamental truth. Your feelings are not a reaction to the world around you, but rather they are the cause of the world you experience. This may sound strange to those of you who have been taught that your emotions are simply responses to external events, but I tell you, it is the other way around. Your emotions, your inner states, are the very substance from which your external reality is formed. Think of it this way. The world you see around you is nothing more than a shadow, a reflection of your inner state of being. Just as a projector casts images onto a screen, your consciousness projects your inner states onto the screen of space and time. And just as changing the film on a projector changes the images on the screen, changing your inner state changes the world you experience. Now, you might be thinking, but Wayne, surely you can't deny the reality of the challenges. I am facing, how can I feel good when I've lost my job, or when I'm facing a serious illness, or when my relationships are in turmoil? And to this I ask you to deny the existence of your current circumstances. I ask you to deny their power over your inner state. You see, your circumstances, no matter how dire they may seem, have no inherent power to make you feel anything. Your feelings are not determined by what happens to you, but by your interpretation of what happens. And this interpretation, this meaning you give to events, is entirely within your control. Let me give you an example to illustrate this point. Imagine two people who have just lost their jobs. One falls into despair, feeling hopeless and defeated. The other feels excited, seeing this as an opportunity for a new beginning, a chance to pursue a long-held dream. Same external event, vastly different emotional responses. What makes the difference? It's not the event itself, but the meaning each person assigns to it. Now you might be thinking, but surely some events are inherently negative. Surely some circumstances are objectively bad. And to this I say, there is no objective reality outside of your consciousness. What you call reality is simply a reflection of your assumptions, your beliefs, your habitual thought patterns. This is not to say that challenging circumstances don't exist. They do. But their power to affect your emotional state is entirely dependent on your choice to give them that power. You always have the ability to choose your response, to choose how you will feel, regardless of external conditions. But why is this so important? Why should you strive to feel good when everything seems to be going wrong? The answer lies in the creative power of your emotions. Your feelings are not just responses to your world, they are the very substance from which your world is created. When you consistently feel good, when you maintain a positive emotional state, regardless of external circumstances, you are aligning yourself with the creative power of the universe. You're tuning your consciousness to the frequency of your desires rather than the frequency of your current circumstances. Think of it like this. Emotions are like a radio tuner. When you feel negative emotions, fear, anxiety, despair, you're tuning into the frequency of lack, of limitation, of things going wrong. But when you choose to feel good, to feel positive emotions, regardless of circumstances, you're tuning into the frequency of abundance, of possibility, of things going right. And here's the game. The universe can only give you more of what you're tuned into. If you're tuned into the frequency of lack and limitation, that's what you'll continue to experience. But if you tune into the frequency of abundance and possibility, that's what will begin to manifest in your life. This is why it's so crucial to remember to feel good, especially when everything else seems to be going wrong. Because in those moments when it's most challenging to feel good, that's when it's most important. That's when you have the greatest opportunity to shift your reality. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, but Wayne, isn't this just positive thinking? Isn't this just putting on a happy face and pretending everything is fine when it's not? And to this I say, this is not about pretending or faking positive emotions. This is about understanding the true nature of reality and your role as a creator. You see, when you truly understand that your inner state is the cause, not the effect of your external reality, feeling good becomes the most logical, the most practical thing you can do. It's not about ignoring problems or pretending they don't exist. It's about recognizing that the solution to any problem, the path to any desire. Let me give you another example to illustrate this point. Imagine you're in a dark room fumbling around trying to find the light switch. The longer you fumble in the dark, the more frustrated you become. The more things you bump into, the more chaos you create. But the moment you find the switch and turn on the light, everything changes. Suddenly, you can see clearly. You can navigate easily. You can put everything in order. Your emotional state is like that light switch. When you're in a negative emotional state, you're fumbling in the dark. You can't see solutions. You can't find opportunities. You create more chaos and confusion. But when you shift to a positive emotional state, when you remember to feel good, it's like turning on the light. Suddenly, you can see clearly. Solutions become apparent. Opportunities reveal themselves. Order replaces chaos. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, but Wayne, how can I possibly feel good when I'm in the midst of real problems, real challenges? And this is a valid question. It's easy to feel good when everything is going well. The real test, the real opportunity for growth and transformation comes when you can maintain a positive emotional state in the face of adversity. So how do you do this? How do you remember to feel good when everything else seems to be going wrong? The key lies in your imagination. Your imagination is the most powerful tool you possess. It is, in fact, the very workshop in which you create your reality. When circumstances seem dire, when problems seem insurmountable, that is the moment to turn to your imagination. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine a reality where your problems are solved, where your desires are fulfilled. Feel the relief, the joy, the excitement of that reality. Let those feelings fill your entire being. Now, some of you might be thinking, but isn't this just fantasy? Isn't this just escapism? And to this, I say, your imagination is not a place to escape reality. Your imagination is the very place where reality is created. You see, what you imagine with feeling, what you experience vividly in your mind's eye, is not separate from reality. It is reality in its nascent state. It is reality, not yet manifested in the world of physical senses, but no less real for that. In fact, it is more real because it is the cause of which your physical reality is merely this. When you imagine a better reality, when you feel the emotions associated with that reality, you are not engaging in idle fantasy. You are engaging in the most powerful, the most practical act of creation. You are impressing upon your subconscious mind the reality you wish to experience, and your subconscious mind, which knows no difference between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced, begins immediately to bring about the conditions and circumstances that match your imagined reality. This is why it's so crucial to remember to feel good, especially when external circumstances seem to be at their worst. Because in those moments when you choose to feel good despite appearances, you are exercising your true power as a creator. You are asserting your dominion over your reality. Now let's address another common concern. Some of you might be thinking, but Wayne, if I feel good when things are going wrong, aren't I just deluding myself? Aren't I ignoring reality? And to this I sigh. What is reality? Is it only what your physical senses show you at this moment? Or is it the infinite field of possibilities that exists in your imagination? You see, what you call reality is simply the outpicturing of past thoughts and feelings. It's the harvest of seeds you've planted in the past. But at any moment, you have the power to plant new seeds, to imagine and feel a new reality into existence. This doesn't mean you ignore your current circumstances or act irresponsibly. It means you acknowledge your present situation while simultaneously holding in your mind and heart the reality you wish to experience. You live in two worlds at once, the world of physical senses and the world of imagination, knowing that the latter will eventually replace the former. Let me give you an example to illustrate this point. Suppose you are currently struggling financially. You wouldn't ignore your bills or pretend your debts don't exist. You would continue to manage your current finances responsibly, but at the same time, you would live from the state of financial abundance in your imagination. You would feel the relief of having all your debts paid. You would experience the joy of having more than enough money for all your needs and desires. You would feel the security of an abundant bank account, and you would carry these feelings with you throughout your day, even as you're dealing with your current financial situation. This is what it means to remember to feel good when everything else is going wrong. It's about holding two realities in your mind simultaneously while emotionally residing in the reality you desire to experience. Now, some of you might be wondering, but how long would it take for my imagined reality to manifest? How long do I need to maintain these good feelings before I see results? And to this I say, time is a construct of the human mind. In the realm of pure consciousness, where all creation takes place, there is no time. Your desire is fulfilled the moment you assume it to be so. The time it takes to appear in your physical reality depends on many factors, including the naturalness of the desire, your ability to maintain your assumption, and the current conditions of your mind. But here's the key. Don't concern yourself with the when or the how. Your job is simply to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and to live from that state. The universe will take care of the details. Trust the process. Know that what you have assumed must come to pass by universal law. Remember, creation is finished. All possible realities already exist. When you assume a new state, when you choose to feel good despite challenging circumstances, you're not creating something new. You're simply selecting a different reality from the infinite array of possibilities that already exist. You're tuning your consciousness to a different frequency, so to speak, and thus experiencing a different version of reality. This understanding should free you from anxiety and impatience. There's no need to worry about whether your desire will manifest. It must, for it already exists. Your only task is to align your consciousness with it through your assumption, through your choice to feel good regardless of external circumstances. Now let's talk about an aspect of this principle that many people overlook. When you truly understand that you always get what you want, that the universe is constantly responding to your assumptions and delivering experiences that match them, how can you not feel profound gratitude? Gratitude is not just a pleasant emotion. It's a powerful creative force. When you feel grateful, you're affirming that you already have what you desire. You're living from the state of fulfillment, of abundance, of your wish realized. And in doing so, you're aligning yourself even more powerfully with that reality. So cultivate an attitude of gratitude, especially when circumstances seem challenging. Be thankful not just for what you already have in your physical reality, but for what you've assumed in your imagination. Feel the gratitude of already being, doing, or having what you desire. This gratitude will transform your entire experience of life. You'll find yourself appreciating the present moment more fully. Even as you're assuming a different state, you'll see the beauty and perfection in all things, recognizing them as expressions of the same divine consciousness that you are. Now, I want to address something that often comes up as people begin to apply these principles. They start to wonder, if feeling good is so important, what if I can't maintain positive emotions all the time? What if I have moments of doubt, fear, or negativity? My friends, it's important to understand that the goal is not to never experience negative emotions. Negative emotions are a natural part of the human experience. The goal is to not dwell in these negative states, to not let them define your overall emotional climate. Think of it like the weather. Just as there will always be some cloudy or rainy days, there will always be some moments of doubt or fear. But just as a few cloudy days don't define the overall climate, a few moments of negativity don't define your overall emotional state. The key is to not resist these negative emotions when they arise, but to acknowledge them, accept them, and then choose to shift back to a positive state. Remember, you always have the power to choose your emotional state, regardless of circumstances. One powerful way to shift your emotional state is through the use of affirmations, but not just any affirmations, affirmations that you feel to be true. You see, the power of an affirmation lies not in the words themselves, but in the feeling behind the words. For example, if you're facing financial difficulties, simply repeating, "I am wealthy," might feel false and create inner conflict. Instead, you might affirm, "I am open to financial abundance," or "money flows to me easily and frequently." It's affirmations that feel true to you that create a sense of possibility and excitement when you say. Another powerful technique for maintaining a positive emotional state is visualization. Spend time each day visualizing your desired reality in vivid detail. See it, hear it, feel it, taste it, smell it. Make it as real as possible in your imagination. As you do this, pay attention to the feelings that arise. Let yourself fully experience the joy, the excitement, the relief of having your desire fulfilled. These feelings are the bridge between your current reality and your desired reality. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Wayne, what about action? Don't we need to do something to bring about the changes we desire? And to this I say, of course, action is important, but it's not the kind of action most people think of. You see, most people believe they need to take action to make things happen. They believe they need to struggle, to strive, to force things into being. But this kind of action often comes from a place of lack of fear, of trying to fix something that's perceived as wrong. The kind of action I'm talking about is inspired action. It's action that flows naturally from your assumed state. When you're consistently feeling good, when you're living from the state of your wish, fulfilled, you'll find yourself naturally taking actions that align with that state. These actions won't feel like struggle or effort. They'll feel natural, effortless, even joyful. You'll find opportunities presenting themselves to you. You'll have intuitive flashes of insight. You'll be in the right place at the right time. This is because when you're in alignment with your desire, when you're feeling good despite challenging circumstances, you're in harmony with the creative power of the universe. You're allowing that power to work through you, guiding your actions and orchestrating events in ways that you could never plan or force. Now let's address another common concern. Some of you might be thinking, but Wayne, what about other people? What if my ability to feel good is dependent on how others treat me or what they do? And to this I say, no one and nothing outside of you has the power to determine your emotional state. You see, other people, like everything else in your reality, are simply playing the parts that you have assigned to them through your assumptions. If you assume that your happiness depends on others, then that will be your experience. But if you assume that your emotional state is entirely within your control, then that will be your reality. This doesn't mean you become indifferent to others or that you don't care about your relationships. It means you take responsibility for your own emotional state, regardless of how others behave. It means you choose to feel good to maintain a positive emotional state, regardless of what others say or do. And here's the beautiful thing. When you do this, when you maintain your positive state, regardless of others' behavior, you'll find that others begin to reflect that state back to you. Remember, the outer world is always a reflection of your inner state as you change. Your experience of others will change too. Now let's talk about persistence. Remembering to feel good when everything seems to be going wrong is not always easy. It requires persistence, practice, and patience. There will be times when you slip back into old patterns of thought and emotion. There will be times when circumstances seem so challenging that it feels impossible to maintain a positive state. It's not about being perfect. It's about consistently returning to your desired state no matter how many times you slip. It's about making the choice again and again to feel good despite appearances. Think of it like learning to play a musical instrument. At first it feels awkward. You make mistakes. It doesn't sound good. But with persistent practice, it becomes more natural. The movements become fluid. The music begins to flow. And one day you realize you're playing beautifully without even thinking about it. The same is true with maintaining a positive emotional state. At first, it might feel forced or unnatural. You might find yourself slipping back into negative states frequently. But with persistent practice, it becomes easier. It becomes more natural. And eventually, it becomes your default state. Now, I want to address something that often comes up as people begin to apply these principles. They start to worry about being selfish or uncaring if they focus on feeling good when others around them are struggling. But I assure you, maintaining your positive state is the most loving, the most compassionate thing you can do. You see, when you choose to feel good regardless of circumstances, you become a beacon of light in a world that often seems dark. You become a living example of the power of consciousness to transform reality. You inspire others, not through preaching or lecturing, but through your very being. Moreover, when you maintain a positive state, you're in a much better position to help others. Think about it. Can a drowning person save another drowning person? You need to be standing on solid ground, or better yet, in a boat, to be able to throw a lifeline to someone who's struggling. In the same way, when you're mired in negative emotions, when you're overwhelmed by challenging circumstances, you're in no position to truly help others. But when you're grounded in a positive state, when you're living from the state of your wish fulfilled, you have the stability, the clarity, and the resources to make a real difference in others' lives. Remember, too, that your state of consciousness affects not just your own experience, but the collective consciousness of humanity. Every time you choose to feel good despite challenging circumstances, you're elevating the entire human family. You're adding your light to the sum of light, making it easier for others to find their way out of darkness. As we come to the close of our discussion, I want to leave you with this final thought. Remembering to feel good when everything else is going wrong is not just a technique for manifesting your desires. It's a way of life. It's a recognition of your true nature as a divine being, as a creator of your reality. When you consistently choose to feel good, regardless of external circumstances, you're declaring your independence from the world of effects. You're asserting your true power as a cause. You're aligning yourself with the creative power of the universe itself. This is the great secret, the great truth that all the mystics and sages throughout history have pointed to. Your emotional state, your inner world, is the source of your entire life experience. As you master your inner world, as you learn to consistently feel good despite appearances, you become the master of your destiny. My dear friends, I urge you, remember to feel good, especially when everything else seems to be going wrong. For in those moments when it's most challenging to maintain a positive state, that's when it's most crucial. That's when you have the greatest opportunity to transform your life and to contribute to transformation in our world. Go forth now, armed with this knowledge, and put it into practice. Choose to feel good no matter what. Live from the state of your wish fulfilled, and watch as the world around you transforms to match your inner state, for this is the true art of living, the true science of creation. This is your birthright as a divine being. Claim it. Live it. You are not here by accident, and this moment is not random. Something within you already knows that what you are hearing is not information, but remembrance. Not something new to acquire, but something ancient to recover. Long before you learned your name, your roles, your wounds, your ambitions, and your fears, there was an awareness that simply was. And that awareness is still here, quietly observing, patiently waiting, never anxious, never in a hurry, never doubting its own worth. This is the part of you that does not chase, does not beg, does not strive. This is the part of you that attracts effortlessly, not by effort, but by alignment. We spend so much of our lives believing that fulfillment exists somewhere outside of us, just over the horizon of achievement, just beyond the next milestone, just past the next relationship, the next paycheck, the next moment when the world finally gives us permission to feel whole. And yet, the deeper truth, the one that gently dissolves the ego and awakens the soul, is that life is not responding to what you want. Life is responding to what you are, not what you say you want, not what you think you deserve, but what you are embodying at the level of consciousness. You see, wanting is often rooted in a subtle belief of lack. Wanting says, I do not have. Wanting says, something is missing. Wanting says, when this arrives, then I will be complete. And the universe, which is extraordinarily obedient, responds not to the words, but to the vibration beneath them. It hears the belief, not the desire. It responds to the identity, not the wish. And so it continues to mirror back experiences that confirm what you are convinced of inside, that you are not enough yet, that you are incomplete, that something outside of you must arrive before peace is possible. This is not punishment. This is not cruelty. This is love in its most precise form. Life is always teaching you who you believe yourself to be. When you look honestly at your patterns, the relationships that repeat, the obstacles that recur, the emotional reactions that feel automatic, you begin to see that they are not accidents, they are reflections. They are mirrors held up not to your circumstances, but to your consciousness. And the moment you stop asking, why does this keep happening to me? and instead ask, what is this revealing about what I am carrying within me? You step out of victimhood and into authorship. You move from reaction to creation. This is where true healing begins. Not in fixing the world, but in understanding the self. Not in controlling outcomes, but in clarifying identity. You are not your past. You are not your trauma. You are not the story you've been repeating to explain your pain. Those are experiences you've had, not definitions of who you are. And yet, when the ego is left unchecked, it clings to those stories because they provide familiarity. The ego would rather be familiar than free. It would rather be right than peaceful. It would rather protect an old identity than surrender to a higher truth. And so it whispers, this is just how I am, not realizing that this sentence is one of the most limiting affirmations a human being can speak. You are not just how you are. You are how you have been conditioned to believe you are. The ego thrives on comparison, judgment, resentment, and fear because these keep attention focused outward. As long as you are measuring yourself against others, blaming circumstances, replaying old wounds, or anxiously projecting into the future, you remain disconnected from the present moment, the only place where transformation is possible. The ego is always either remembering or anticipating. The soul is always now, and in this now moment, there is nothing missing. This is perhaps the most radical truth you will ever encounter. Your worth is not negotiable. It does not increase with success or diminish with failure. It does not depend on approval, productivity, attractiveness, or usefulness. It is intrinsic. It is inherent. It is non-transferable. You were worthy before you accomplished anything, and you will be worthy even when you accomplish nothing at all. To understand, this is not arrogance. It is humility, because it acknowledges that your value does not come from the ego's efforts, but from the source that created you. When you begin to live from this understanding, something extraordinary happens. You stop trying to get love, and you start being love. You stop chasing validation, and you start radiating authenticity. You stop manipulating outcomes, and you start trusting intelligence far greater than the thinking mind. And life responds accordingly. You do not attract abundance by obsessing over money. You attract abundance by embodying a consciousness of sufficiency, generosity, and trust. You do not attract love by fearing abandonment. You attract love by knowing your own completeness. You do not attract peace by fighting anxiety. You attract peace by releasing resistance to the present moment. The outer world reorganizes itself around the inner state because the inner state is the cause and the outer experience is the effect. This is not philosophy meant to impress the intellect. This is a law as reliable as gravity. Think of your consciousness as a tuning fork. Whatever frequency you are vibrating at determines what harmonizes with you. When you are vibrating at fear, you attract circumstances that require fear. When you are vibrating at resentment, you attract situations that justify resentment. When you are vibrating at self-doubt, you attract obstacles that confirm it. And when you shift even slightly into trust, compassion, gratitude, and presence, life begins to introduce people, opportunities, and insights that align with that new frequency. This is why personal growth is never about becoming someone else. It is about unbecoming everything you are not. It is about shedding false identities, inherited beliefs, and conditioned fears that have obscured your natural state. The oak tree does not strain to become an oak. It simply removes what blocks the acorn from expressing its inherent design. In the same way, you are not here to manufacture greatness. You are here to allow it. But allowance requires surrender, and surrender is frightening to the ego. The ego equates surrender with loss of control, not realizing that control was always an illusion. You have never controlled the beating of your heart, the rising of the sun, or the unfolding of life itself. And yet, somehow, everything has continued. Life has been living you just as much as you have been living life. The moment you stop resisting this truth, you feel relief. The moment you stop arguing with what is, you experience grace. Forgiveness plays a central role in this awakening, not as a moral obligation, but as a practical necessity for freedom. Holding resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for someone else to suffer. It keeps you anchored to the past, replaying moments that no longer exist, draining energy that could be used for creation. There are no justified resentments because resentment only hurts one person, the one holding it. Forgiveness is not about condoning behavior. It is about reclaiming your own peace. When you forgive, you are not saying what happened was acceptable. You are saying, I choose not to let this define my inner world. You are choosing alignment over attachment, freedom over familiarity. And as you release these energetic anchors, you may notice something remarkable. Your external circumstances begin to shift without effort. People change. Opportunities appear. Obstacles dissolve. Not because you force them to, but because the inner environment that sustained them is no longer present. This is the quiet power of inner work. It does not announce itself. It does not demand recognition. It simply transforms. Living in the now is not a technique, it is a recognition. The present moment is not something you enter, it is something you remember. You never left. Anxiety dissolves when attention returns to now, because anxiety cannot survive without a future to project into. Regret dissolves when attention returns to now, because regret cannot survive without a past to revisit. Peace is not something you find, it is what remains when the mind stops traveling. And in this stillness, you may begin to sense something subtle but profound. The intelligence that animates you is the same intelligence that animates everything. You are not separate from life, you are an expression of it. You are not a fragment struggling to survive in a hostile universe. You are the universe experiencing itself through a unique perspective. This understanding dissolves loneliness at its root. How can you be alone when you are made of the same substance as the stars? The soul always knows. Long before logic catches up, long before evidence appears, long before circumstances change, there is an inner knowing that whispers, this is the way. The challenge is not that the soul is silent. It is that the mind is loud. The ego demands proof, guarantees, timelines, and reassurance. The soul asks only for trust, and trust grows not through control, but through alignment. When you act from alignment, effort feels different. It is not forced, it is inspired. You are not pushing against life, you are cooperating with it. And when resistance falls away, synchronicity emerges. You meet the right people at the right time. You hear the right words when you need them. Doors open, not because you knocked harder, but because you were finally ready to walk through them. This readiness is not about worthiness. You were always worthy. It is about identity. Who are you being in this moment? A seeker who believes fulfillment is elsewhere, or a creator who recognizes it within. A victim of circumstance, or a conscious participant in the unfolding of life. A body with a soul, or a soul having a human experience. When you identify with the ego, life feels like a struggle. When you identify with the soul, life feels like a dance. The music does not always change, but your relationship to it does. And as this relationship shifts, you may notice that what you once desperately wanted loses its grip on you. Not because it was wrong, but because it was never the source of fulfillment you imagined. What you were really seeking was a feeling, peace, freedom, love, significance. And these were always available internally. The external goals were simply symbols the mind used to justify allowing those feelings. Once you realize you can allow them now, the chase ends. This is the paradox. When you stop chasing, things start arriving. When you stop needing, you start receiving. When you stop proving, you start attracting. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. So be peace, and peace will find you. Be love, and love will recognize itself in your presence. Be trust, and life will show you reasons to trust. Be gratitude, and abundance will multiply. This is not wishful thinking, it is spiritual physics. And remember, transformation is not a dramatic event. It is a gentle, moment-by-moment choice to return to truth, to notice when the ego tightens and to soften, to notice when fear speaks and to listen without obeying, to notice when the past calls and to remain present. Every time you choose awareness over reaction, you shift your frequency. Every time you choose compassion over judgment, you realign with your nature. Every time you choose now over later, you step into freedom. There is nothing you need to add to yourself to be whole. There's only what you need to release. And as you release beliefs, identities, resentments, fears, you may discover that what remains is not emptiness, but fullness, not weakness, but strength, not confusion but clarity. This is who you were before the world told you who to be. This is who you are beneath the noise. And from this place, everything follows. And from this place, everything follows, not because you command life to obey you, but because you are no longer in conflict with it. When you stop arguing with reality, reality stops arguing with you. When you stop insisting that life be different before you allow yourself to feel whole, life gently rearranges itself to mirror that wholeness back to you. You begin to notice that effort transforms into intention. Struggle transforms into clarity. Control transforms into cooperation. The need to dominate outcomes dissolves into a quiet confidence that whatever unfolds is unfolding with you, not against you. This is not passive resignation. This is conscious alignment. It is the deepest form of power there is, the power that does not push, but attracts. Most people misunderstand attraction. They think it is about visualizing objects, repeating affirmations, or forcing optimism. But attraction is not a technique. It is a state of being. It is not about what you say to yourself, but about what you believe without words. It is not about convincing the universe. It is about becoming congruent with the truth of who you are. When your inner world is fragmented, when part of you wants and another part doubts, when part of you hopes and another part fears, you emit mixed signals. Life reflects that confusion back as delay, inconsistency, or resistance. But when your inner world becomes coherent, when your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs align with a deeper knowing, the signal becomes clear, and clarity is magnetic. This is why healing always precedes manifestation. You cannot create sustainably from a wounded identity. You can achieve, yes, but achievement without healing becomes another mask, another distraction, another attempt to outrun an inner emptiness that will not be silenced by success. True fulfillment comes not from adding more to your life, but from subtracting what is false. The ego resists this subtraction because it has invested heavily in the illusion of becoming. It tells you that you are a project, a work in progress, something to be improved, optimized, perfected. And while growth is natural, the belief that you are fundamentally incomplete is not. That belief is the root of suffering. It keeps you striving for a future self instead of honoring the presence of the self that already is. The soul, on the other hand, knows that growth is expansion, not repair. A flower does not bloom because it is broken. It blooms because that is its nature. In the same way, your evolution is not about fixing what is wrong with you, but about expressing what is right with you more fully. As you begin to live from this understanding, you may notice subtle shifts in how you relate to time. The urgency softens. The impatience loosens its grip. You stop asking, when will it happen? And start asking, who am I being while I wait? And in that question, waiting itself transforms. It becomes a sacred interval, not a punishment. A gestation period, not a delay. Nothing in nature rushes, and yet everything is accomplished. The seasons do not compete with one another. Winter does not apologize for resting. Spring does not demand proof before it blooms. Summer does not cling when it is time to let go. Autumn does not mourn what falls away. Each phase trusts the intelligence that moves it. And you are no different. You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be to become who you are becoming. This is why comparison is so corrosive to the spirit. When you measure your life against someone else's timeline, you disconnect from your own rhythm. You forget that growth is not linear, that awakening is not predictable, that transformation does not follow a schedule. Each soul unfolds according to its own design. And the moment you stop comparing, you reclaim your energy. Energy is precious. Where you place your attention determines the quality of your experience. Attention given to fear amplifies fear. Attention given to gratitude amplifies abundance. Attention given to judgment strengthens separation. Attention given to compassion dissolves it. This is not moral philosophy. It is energetic law. What you feed grows. What you starve fades. So ask yourself gently, without condemnation, where is my attention habitually resting? On what is wrong or on what is real? On what is lacking or on what is alive? On what has hurt me or on what is healing me right now? These questions are not meant to induce guilt. They are meant to invite awareness. Awareness is the doorway to choice. And choice is the birthplace of freedom. Freedom does not mean the absence of challenge. It means the absence of identification with struggle. Challenges will arise, that is the nature of form. But when you are rooted in being rather than becoming, challenges no longer threaten your identity. They become invitations rather than obstacles, teachers rather than enemies. Even pain, when met with presence, transforms. Pain resisted becomes suffering. Pain accepted becomes wisdom. Pain observed becomes compassion. And compassion, perhaps more than anything else, is the signature of an awakened life. When you recognize your own humanity with tenderness, you recognize it in others. Judgment falls away because you see yourself everywhere. Forgiveness becomes natural because you understand that everyone is acting from their level of consciousness just as you are. This understanding does not make you passive, it makes you peaceful. It does not make you indifferent, it makes you discerning. You learn to say yes without attachment and no without guilt. You learn to participate fully without losing yourself. You learn to love deeply without clinging. And as your relationships shift, so does your sense of self. You stop seeking completion through others. You stop outsourcing your worth. You stop asking people to fill spaces that were never empty to begin with. Love becomes an expression, not a transaction, a sharing, not a bargaining. This is when you truly understand that you are already enough, not as a concept, but as a lived reality. Enough not because you have achieved some standard, but because you are aligned with your source. Enough not because life is perfect, but because your relationship to life is honest. Enough not because nothing hurts, but because nothing defines you. From this place of enoughness, generosity flows naturally. You give without depletion. You serve without self-erasure. You create without attachment to outcome. And paradoxically, this is when life gives back most abundantly, not because you are trying to receive, but because you are open. Openness is the key. A closed heart cannot attract. A guarded mind cannot receive. A contracted identity cannot expand. When you soften, life enters. When you trust, life responds. When you allow, life surprises you. You begin to see that miracles are not violations of natural law. They are expressions of alignment with it. They occur not when you beg, but when you believe. Not when you force, but when you flow. Not when you demand, but when you surrender. Surrender does not mean giving up your dreams. It means releasing your grip on how they must arrive. It means trusting that the intelligence that placed the desire within you knows how to fulfill it in ways the ego cannot predict. It means letting go of the illusion that your limited perspective knows best. When you surrender in this way, anxiety loses its fuel, control loses its purpose, resistance loses its argument. And what remains is a quiet joy, not the excitement of getting what you want, but the peace of being who you are. This joy is not dependent on circumstances. It does not fluctuate with outcomes. It is not loud or dramatic. It is steady, grounded, spacious. It feels like coming home to yourself after a long journey of seeking. And perhaps that is what this life has always been, a remembering rather than a becoming, a return rather than a conquest, a softening rather than a struggle. You were never meant to attract happiness by chasing it. You were meant to embody happiness by aligning with your nature. You were never meant to earn love by proving your worth. You were meant to express love by recognizing it within. You were never meant to control life into submission. You were meant to cooperate with its intelligence. So rest in this knowing. Let it settle beneath your thoughts, beneath your habits, beneath your fears. Let it inform how you breathe, how you listen, how you respond. Let it guide you back to yourself again and again. Because when you change within, not by force, but by awareness, everything follows. Not because the world suddenly becomes perfect, but because you finally see it clearly. And in that clarity, you are free. This is emotional maturity. Not the absence of desire, but the absence of attachment. Attachment says, I cannot be okay unless this happens. Alignment says, I am okay, and I welcome what happens. From this place, gratitude becomes effortless. Not gratitude as politeness, but gratitude as perception. You begin to notice what is already working, already supporting you, already unfolding. You see that breath is a gift. Awareness is a gift. Existence itself is a miracle so ordinary that the mind overlooks it. Gratitude shifts your frequency instantly, not because it changes circumstances, but because it changes perception. and perception is reality experienced. Two people can stand in the same moment and live in entirely different worlds depending on what they are noticing. When you notice lack, life feels harsh. When you notice presence, life feels generous. Presence is the doorway through which everything meaningful enters. Creativity flows from presence. Love deepens in presence. Healing occurs in presence. You cannot heal yesterday. You cannot live tomorrow. You can only meet now. And now is always sufficient. Even when now includes discomfort. Discomfort is not an error. It is information. It is the soul signaling misalignment, asking for attention, inviting recalibration. When you meet discomfort with curiosity instead of resistance, it loosens. When you meet it with compassion instead of judgment, it transforms. Nothing in you is asking to be rejected. Everything in you is asking to be understood. This includes fear. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is simply the ego's attempt to protect an identity it believes is fragile. When you stop fighting fear and start observing it, it loses authority. You realize that fear is loud but not wise, insistent but not accurate, convincing but not truthful. Fear speaks in absolutes. The soul speaks in whispers. Fear demands certainty. The soul invites trust. And trust is not blind belief. It is experiential knowing. It is built each time you choose alignment over anxiety and discover that life holds you. Each time you release control and notice that things still work out, sometimes better than you imagined. Each time you listen inward and are guided accurately, slowly, confidence replaces doubt. Not confidence in outcomes, but confidence in yourself. Confidence that whatever arises, you can meet it with presence. Confidence that you do not need to know everything in advance to move forward. Confidence that your worth is not fragile. This confidence is quiet. It does not need to announce itself. It does not compete. It does not seek validation. It simply stands. And from this inner stability, outer stability emerges. Not because life becomes predictable, but because you become adaptable, flexible, resilient, rooted. You realize that nothing external can give you what you refuse to allow internally. And nothing external can take from you what you are no longer outsourcing. This is sovereignty. Not dominance, but self-ownership. The recognition that while you cannot control life, you can choose how you relate to it. And that choice shapes everything. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. So be patient if things are shifting slowly. Consciousness evolves in layers. Identity softens in waves. Integration takes time. There is no rush. Awakening is not a race. It is a return to simplicity, a return to presence. A return to truth. And truth, when fully embodied, changes everything without force, without struggle, without noise. Just by being